Today, I let my rage be beautiful. This opening line of Drew Drake's poem pushed me to rethink the role of poetics for our ethical and theological stance and the role emotions play in it, especially rage. Rage has not to be destructive, but may be creative as it responds to vulnerability and injustice. And in this, the power of mourning is reflected. Emotions are rooted in our corporal existence, our relation to the other, and show us the abyss of social distancing. Poetics expresses our vulnerable existence and reminds us of the beauty in it. I shall discuss 3 poetical responses to the crisis in spring and early summer. They range from close description to lament and protest. 2 stem from the European context, like myself, mirroring the COVID-19 pandemic, 1 from a Black African-American background responding to the ongoing racial violence in the US. And all authors felt to the urge to react with their means poetics. Descriptive poetic questioning, Danny Zuig. Danny Zuig, a composer and songwriter in Berlin, stands in the German tradition of Liedermacher. His song is accompanied with an electric e-guitar and has been written during the lockdown in April under an extremely blue sky with almost no airplanes and enchanting blossoming. However, this idyllic setting becomes the starting point for his uneasiness and skeptical self-questioning as expressed in the refrain. The bright blue sky of these days, what is it that is wrong with it? While an invisible giant takes the world's breath away and ends its party. The blue sky serves as a mirror for the situation in Germany and other parts of the world who abruptly were slowed down due to the lockdown. Quote, some can easily afford the lockdown, others hardly get out of their debts. In his description, long-standing burning issues are mentioned. He calls them the wrong decisions of the last years, and they are all become visible through the lens of the lockdown. Issues in the healthcare system, the industrial production of food, economic crisis, social inequality, migration, and last but not least, the climate trauma. As the lockdown seems to function confusingly as a pause button. From an environmental perspective, one could welcome the virus and its consequences. However, Danny Zuig does not feel at ease with this conclusion, as he sees the danger of moralistic misuse. Quote again, the gold price is rising to unprecedented heights. Thousands are quickly brought from Eastern Europe to harvest asparagus in Germany, and for parentless children from Camp Moria, the capacities are exhausted. The bright blue sky these days, what is it, what is wrong with it, while a giant shows us the moral bankruptcy. The composer does not give room to emotions. He is cautious to draw conclusions. He's self-questioning himself and the listeners. The virus is surnamed with a compelling metaphor, the giant, the invisible one. The invisible giant does not have a message. It just takes us the breath away. In search for a place for those who died alone. Our difficulties with breathing resonate likewise in the poem by Ulrike Beil. Her longing for the other is expressed through speechless lament. The poem is titled Bergamo, and it has just been awarded by the National Committee in Luxembourg. I quote the poem, "The winter in your mouth through the empty city. In your hand, the locked out breath. Prayers like disposable towels or undergrowth. in search for a place for those who died alone. Perhaps a pier busk, a high beach. I would call this stop Bergamo, arrêt supprimé, none served stop. In the dense poem, the sentences are sometimes broken. They seem unfinished, as either verb or subject is missing. At the end of the poem, a subject emerges through the voice of the first person singular. Two uncommon metaphors are used regarding prayer. Prayers are called disposable towels for single use. Likewise, prayers are espacious in a deserted landscape where everything dies back. The I voice would call the place for prayers Bergamo, which has become a grieving symbol of the pandemic in Europe. The city, in a highly populated region close to Milan, an industrial center, has suffered from a high mortality rate due to COVID-19. However, in the poem, this place for rest and lament is a stop which is not served. The place for lament is suppressed. Ulrike Beil chooses here a French expression of her new multilingual home. The requested stop is not responded to. No stop, no rest. Our journey does not halt. No time and place for lament. In Upper Italy and around the globe in spring, almost only the grave diggers stood at the graves to mourn. Grief-struck families mourned their coronavirus dead online as they were denied a funeral. They shared photos, memories and sorrow that their loved ones had died alone. This has turned into a protest movement trying to persecute the ones they hold responsible for the deaths. Noi denunceremo, we will denounce. The final poem to be treated emerged from protest movements like Black Lives Matter and People Strike, fighting against COVID capitalism. Prophetic Rage, Drew Drake. The Rape Poetry by Drew Drake, the Rap Poetry by Drew Drake, a New York-based teaching artist, explicitly addresses emotions, in particular rage, which seems to embrace all his longings, his pain, and his pleasure. It is an emotion shared by many of his community and around the globe. The performance does not only treat anger, it incites this emotion and its beauty. I quote, "Today, I let my rage be beautiful, felt no need to dress it up, did not care how it looked or what ground it shook. I just let it be, and it was beautiful." Anger, which according to ancient philosophers only makes sense for those in power, rises exactly due to the lack of reciprocity. Rage, as a usually disregarded emotion, is acclaimed as beautiful and no longer suppressed. Let's listen again to Drew Drake. "Today, I let my rage be joyful. My rage can sound like a soul clap, sound like knack if you buck, sound like amazing grace, sound like lift every voice and sing. And don't it sound like this rage is total praise?" He alludes to a huge reservoir ranging from psalm prayers, gospels, and crunk music that can give providence in the struggle for survival. His question at the end, "And don't it sound like this rage is total praise?" makes me think of the theology of the Psalter. The Psalter ends on universal praise without annihilating lament and protest against injustice. I want to identify two more theological allusions how rage is characterized. The first, "Today I let my rage be holy." Anger by humans is rather seen negatively in the Bible. Good anger is reserved for God. An exception might be Moses expressing anger after the speech of Pharaoh in Exodus 11, who refuses the Israelites to leave the bondage. The other, declaration of rage, I let it be, and it was beautiful. The expression alludes to the creation account in Genesis 1 and God's final statement at the end of his creative acts. And God saw, it is Tov, Hebrew for good and beautiful. To conclude, the three poetical responses are united in their indignation about a new normal. One can understand the poems as late modern psalms. Danitsuik acts as prophet, disclosing injustice, moral ambiguities, and the absurdity during the lockdown. No longer heaven, but the blue sky serves as horizon. The poem by Ulrike Beil and the one by Drew Drake alludes to religious themes and language. In order to commemorate the dead, Ulrike Beil searches desperately for a place for lament and rest. The poem reflects on prayer. Drew Drake playfully and powerfully mixes up biblical and postmodern hip-hop language, turning the allusions to biblical text and common norms upside down, in opposite to the general negative perception of rage as destructive. It becomes a creative act, as the artist and activist becomes the creator, stating, I let it be, and it was beautiful. Thank you.